I'm not going to talk about anything technical today. I'm mostly focusing on economics. So we're going to delve into the topic of tokenomics. So if you design your coin, if you want to design a proper coin with proper economic incentive, make people believe that the coin has a true value and a long-term value, maybe you should follow some general rules. So I've taken this presentation out of experience we had in developing our own blockchain that you can check out. But I've been trying to generalize as much as I could the presentation so that you basically can apply this sort of framework to any coin and any token design that you can possibly imagine. And eventually you can also apply it whether it's a proof of work or proof of stake network. Okay, so let's start. Okay, you don't want my picture. Okay, so let's start with some definitions, right? What's a utility token and what's a store of value coins? So let's start with the easiest one. The store of value coins, maybe you heard of it. This is stems from Aristotle, and he has like 3 functions of money, which is unit of account, medium of exchange, and store of value. So what is store of value? Basically, gold is considered as a store of value, where the purchasing power of the coin doesn't go down with time. So that's for the first part of the definition. The second part is the utility token, and it's a bit more complicated to define. But I follow a definition given by Kong and his colleagues on a paper, which is basically based on what we call in economics the productivity. So how much performance the coin can have inherently, meaning that is it useful for the goods and services you are supposed to buy on the blockchain you use or on the smart contracts you use, right? But what's happening here, and it's been spotted by few authors. The first one was actually Vitalik, but there is a paper I quote here, which is a bit more formal, is that you basically have a conflict between the store of value token and a utility token. So why? Because basically, when you have a token with high velocity as a utility token, because what happens with the utility token, you're going to transact and pass it hand to hand to other people quite fast. So that's the definition of velocity. But the velocity will affect the price because as much as you transact, everything else being equal, your price would go down. This is a basic theory of money, which is called the quantitative theory of money. And if you, the more you how do you distinguish velocity and liquidity? That's the question. Liquidity is, okay, you can have a proxy as the circulating supply, and velocity is how much your token is exchanged and how many transactions with that circulating supply you can do. Is it clear? Why? No, tell me.
I write legal opinions on this all day long, and I do tokenomics all day long. And I get into arguments about whether or not a store of value and utility are inappropriate to be the same thing. I'd argue that the newer version of Ethereum.
Yeah. Well, for the case of, because in that case you have an inverse correlation between the correlation between the between the miner compensation, so how much they would stake on the Ethereum network and for how long, meaning that the block time is key here, because the higher the block time, the more restrictive the number of transactions you can do within that block time. We talk about that during dinner if you want. Yeah, okay. Because it goes like more into the details, but yeah, you have an inverse correlation. What you have to remember, inverse correlation between the miner compensation, meaning like how much reward they get per block, and the number of transactions you do during this block time, and that's usually how you approximately define velocity, is the number of transactions you can do during that block time with one coin. But the point is, if you have high velocity, that means that you have a token that is useful, meaning that per the first definition is that you have a utility token. So you have kind of a paradox, and this is called the Ico Paradox, and it comes from Olden and Melanie, who studied that paradox quite deeply in a paper published in 2019. 99. So there are like few solutions to overcome this paradox. And the interest they have is like they focus mainly on how you finance your project. When you do a fundraise, when you do an ICO, it's like how you design your tokenomics so that the velocity is not so high, so that it doesn't really affect the token price in the long term, and also still retain some utility of the token itself. So where they have like basically two revenue models that they confront. The first one is basically a fee, and that's not pertains to blockchain itself. Like any big platform is that you pay a fee to use the platform, and then you can and then you can draw revenues from that. And the second model is basically utility tokens, which is the topic now. And but there is a slight problem in this paper, because if you try to design a utility token with low velocity, first is very high, because basically at the very early stage you don't know what's the optimal level of velocity. And the second thing is kind of like a short-term profit maximization, because what you're going to do is you're going to have a very you're going to design this token, but it doesn't. The problem is the long-term growth of the token and the long-term growth value of the token, and that's what you want to maximize. You don't want to maximize your raise and then have some issue with the token because it doesn't go hand to hand like so fast, or because it goes like it has so much velocity that basically your price would crash in the long run. So we need to go a bit like beyond the ICO model. And what I've some sort of feedback that I can give you when we were like designing our blockchain is basically that you can differentiate like the token according to the use case of your blockchain or smart contracts, and you can even have like 2 or 3 different tokens for different uses, and that way basically you can you can put you can dissociate and decouple the velocity of one of your token with another token that is used for long-term value growth. But this applies better when under like some specific condition. One of them is actually those tokens needs to have different block time and different rewards. That's the main condition. Otherwise, you're not gonna like have like 2 tokens on your network if it has like the first token you're gonna try to sell during your fundraise has no use at all. So you really need to be careful about that. And on top of this model where you have like basically two tokens, what you can do is other options to reduce the velocity. The first one obviously is staking. It's a bit more easier on a proof of stake network, but we have some ways of removing some tokens out of circulation, meaning that if they are out of circulation, you have a you can have like some sort of leverage on your long-term price. You can also what we call like proof of value mechanism. Basically, is that you use those tokens to burn them to give you access to other services. I give you an example of what we do. For instance, is we have two tokens. One is more a utility/store value token, and the other one is a pure transactional token. And if you want to print the pure transactional token, what you have to do is basically forego the block reward for the utility token. So you transfer the value from one token to another, and therefore you limit the circulating supply, and you have some action on your price. Another option is like what we call the pay to use. So it's kind of a toll fee. Some would argue that the gas fee is already that, but actually for some use case, you can realize that the gas fee is too low, and therefore it would like not deter some bad behavior on your network. And in that case, you can like have a special fee where if users wants to use this particular token, you can basically pay an extra fee for accessing this service. And the last one is to design some reputation system, but that's the tricky part, because in a decentralized system, it's very difficult to compartment your idea with like your address and like link your idea with your address, and then it goes to some sort of rabbit hole. So that's for me, that's still like a field that needs to be investigated, but because it's interesting. But in terms of governance and risks, is kind of like non-negligible. So needs to be more to be designed like very carefully in that case. So still, of course, you have like some drawbacks when you have like two different tokens on the same network. The main one is, say you have a store value token, a bit like Bitcoin, and the other one is a transactional token, like in our network. The problem is what are you going to do with compliance and some legal issues, because one of your token can be considered as a security, and in that case, it's kind of tricky because you would have like some more legal fees and legal issues to deal with in order to have your token fully compliant. So there's this part to be aware of. Another drawback is like what we call switching cost in economics is basically if you have a network with several tokens, it's really complexify the understanding of the whole network and how people will interact with it. So if it's really too complex, then people might just like say, okay, I don't understand how it goes. I don't understand what's the purpose of your 2 tokens or 3 tokens. So I just like give up and I won't switch to your network because it's too costly for me. And it could actually prevent you from having like a higher adoption rate in the first phase. And the last one is what we call information asymmetries, because in your designing, you can have some side effects where some token holders have more information about how it works and how they can basically cheat the system. we figured that in our network we use sharding, but between the shard you need to have some intermediaries to basically transfer liquidity from one shard to another. And in our case, we had this issue because there was a huge asymmetry of information between the intermediary who could actually spam the network and by spamming the network with false fees and false liquidity provisions and basically make profit out of it. Because you cannot verify that unless up until the transaction is done that this liquidity providers has actually the liquidity. So when you design your token, you need to take into account all the use case and the side effects that can go with it. So to prevent that, basically we have put some sort of like a fee so that we create some sort of reputation system. It's like very primitive, but it works well. It's basically you pay to update your registry to do the transaction between the shards, and the more updates you have, the more reliable you can be, and therefore you can build like some sort of reputation out of it. But this is just an example drawing from our own network. And obviously, each use case is kind of like different, but this is a key parameter to be taken into account. But you also have like some benefits of having like different tokens, like at least 2 tokens in your own network, because you will be able to decouple the raise. Because you will offer like during your ICO one particular token and not the other, and you can differentiate your revenue model, meaning your long-term growth, with one utility token, and having another token that is like more specific to the raise because it embeds some utility features that I was mentioning in the beginning. Also, you can differentiate different motives because when you look at the early stage of a blockchain network, you have 2 motives for people to join a network. The first is the investment one, and the second is the transaction incentive. So most of the early adopters are more likely to be investors. So you have to offer some tokens that are more close to the store value than a utility token. And therefore having several tokens you can really dissociate what token does what on the network, and therefore have some you can reduce the velocity and you can have some long-term growth value for the investment token, so to speak. And then I was talking about that. You can also like do some staking and value transfers between tokens. And I'm done actually. Is like